Hey, welcome back to the Racial Draft Podcast. We are back, like we definitely left, but we're back for the eighth season where we change the complexion of the comic book universe, one draft pick at a time. I am your host, Michael Ford, joined this week by Carlos Freytes Jr. Carlos,
That's
say what's
me.
up to the people.
What's up, everybody? Back for another season, another either first or second place finish. That's how I do. I don't even know what it looks like at third place. I've never been that low. I don't know how. What is it like down there? I don't know. I don't know.
So yeah, if you're new to this podcast, this is a great time to jump on. We're in the soft reboot era. We are in our secret wars, as it
Right.
were, secret racial wars, and not so secret actual racial wars, but secret,
Right.
but secret comic book racial wars. And what we do here is we use the comic book universes to talk about race and comics and how these characters could be improved or not improved by their races being changed and their culture identities being either grafted on them or ideally reimagined in a more holistic way to, reinforce what the characters stand for while still, giving the opportunity for underrepresented groups to have representation. So the thought process, the conceit, if you will, is what if these characters, had always been of this particular racial background? Obviously, that means that some characters you might want to stay a certain background, particularly, when we're talking about black characters or that were created during an era of racial discord where they were saying, we want to represent the 1970s and the black struggle of the 1970s. A lot of those characters, it's sort of, uh, what would you say, sort of endemic or inherent to the character that
I mean,
this identity, you know,
yeah, I would say it's for some of those characters. It is literally the reason they were created.
yeah. So there's a sort of degree of difficulty element when you take a character that was created in that fashion and try to reimagine them. And he has the mixture, if you will, of the racial draft to best tease out the discussions about these characters and the changes that might befall them if they get drafted into a different delegation than what they were originally imagined as. So we'll get right into our business from season 8 before we run down again the finishes for season 7. In 10th place was the Native American delegation. In ninth place was the Swana Maina delegation. In eighth place was the multiracial delegation. In seventh place was the East Southeast Asian delegation. In sixth place was the white delegation. In fifth place was the South Asian delegation. In fourth place was the black delegation. Third place, the Jewish delegation. Second place, the Latino delegation? Question mark. And in first place, for the first time ever, the Polynesian delegation. And in keeping with our rules, the top 3 delegations make up the 8th, ninth, and 10th picks in our snake draft. So, 8th pick, Jewish delegation; ninth pick, Latino delegation; and 10th pick, Polynesian delegation. But that means that the other 7 delegations will be competing for the first pick. So, live here on the podcast, we're going to decide who picks first in season
Let's see.
8. The N for the Native American delegation,
Good.
the
Okay.
B for the Black delegation, the M for the multiracial delegation, the E for the East Southeast Asian delegation, the W for the white delegation. This is where it gets tricky. The S for the South Asian delegation, and unfortunately, the blank for the Swanamena delegation. Invisible even in the racial draft. Strikes that. Number 1 pick for the racial draft will be the black delegation. Whoa! Black comes first. Weird. It's weird. It's a weird time. So, congratulations to the black delegation. You will have your first pick. I do not know which direction they will go, but
I really
I'm
don't either.
very curious to see. So that means I'm going to shift them up to the 1 spot. So the number 1 pick will be the black delegation. The number 2 pick will be the Native American delegation. The number 3 pick will be the Swana MENA delegation. Number 4 will be multiracial. Number 5 will be East Southeast Asian. Number 6 will be white. Number 7 will be South Asian. Number 8 will be Jewish. Number 9 will be Latino. And number 10, Polynesian for our snake draft for season 8. I don't
So
know
the
if that's
black
gonna.
delegation jumped up from where were they? Where
They
would they
were
have?
were the eighth. No, sorry, they were
Seventh?
the seventh. So they did the true lottery win
They won the
jump.
lottery. Wow.
Yeah. So
All right.
congratulations to Randy. We'll see whether he makes the most of the number one spot.
Koa, first pick.
That concludes our racial draft business. Stay tuned. By the time you listen to this podcast, we will have already convened our first pick, most likely. You can find our picks on the social media platform of your choosing, whether that is Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, of course, racialdraft.com. Also, AOL. Yeah, remember them? No, not AOL. Definitely not AOL. I meant Facebook.
We're also on,
Same thing.
let's see, 4chan,
Yeah,
Truth
yeah.
Social, Nude Africa, Black Planet, and the IMDb message boards. Wow. Wow.
But if you can find all of our picks and polls and the like at racialdraft.com, the hub, if you will. But in the meanwhile, as we navigate the social media space in the world that will follow in the post before times, we will try our best to meet you where you are. Obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you know where we can find us on podcast platforms, but you can also see us on YouTube as well. Stay out of the comments. Remember, stay out of the comments. But yeah, let's just, kind of go a little off topic, just talk about where we are in the state of comic book news and comic book depictions, whether it's animated, live action, just media, comic media. We had a light year on the Marvel side, on the MCU side at least. We only had the one movie, Deadpool and Wolverine. We had a couple shows. Agatha All Along was the most recent one. Right? Echo was this year, wasn't it?
I'm trying, I don't even know anymore. Was Echo in the spring this year?
No, I thought it was in February, wasn't it?
Was it?
Early in the year. January, maybe.
Man, it's a
Yeah,
blur. It's a blur.
it is a
I know
blur.
we have What If coming still this year, correct? Like December.
Is it December?
I believe it is. I believe it's coming in December.
Okay, so yeah,
Yeah.
so we've still got What If, and of course we had X-Men '97 on the animated side as well. We had another live action series that I'm drawing a blank on.
Live action Marvel, Agatha All Along. Oh
Or was
man,
it
I'm out
just
of practice.
Echo? Or was it
I
just
think
Echo?
so. I think that's it.
Hmm.
There wasn't anything, yeah, nothing else that I can think of.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Was Loki season 2 this year? God, I don't even know.
No,
Like
no.
it's all,
Loki season 2 was definitely last year because remember Jonathan Majors was still a thing.
oh,
Um,
yeah.
Jonathan.
Yeah, right.
And of course, we had the Sony universe of Marvel movies. They had three of those. Well, two and one is yet to come. We had our favorite person who was mother was researching spiders in the Amazon before she died, Madam Web. We also had Venom, Heat of the Last Dance, and we're about to get Craven the Hunter, the Craven Search for Money.
Yeah.
And on the
Craven
DC,
Craven them Sony Spider-Man rights
yeah,
for as long as in perpetuity.
and yeah, starting this week, we will finally get the official kickoff of the DCU with Future Commandos.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out. We didn't, other than we had the Penguin on the
We also
DC
had
side.
Batman Caped Crusader, which
Yes,
was fantastic. It was
yeah,
so good. And actually very apt for the racial draft. There was some racial drafting going on in the Caped
for sure,
Crusader series.
for sure. Yeah, there was some notable racial draftings that went
I
down.
Yeah, I don't even want to spoil it for people. If you haven't seen that, like go now, immediately go. It was a show that I was so like Gordy from the White Delegation and I went to see the first, I believe it was the first two episodes at a screening at the Alamo Draft House here in Chicago.
Okay.
And they released the episodes, I think maybe even that next day, all of it on Prime, and it was so good. And I was so surprised by it because I knew nothing really about it except for the art style because that had been publicized. But it was just so surprising to watch that I resisted the urge to Google, like, who was that? What voice was, I know that voice until the end because I didn't want to get spoiled on what characters I was going to be seeing. And it was, yeah, I was so thoroughly impressed with it by the end of it.
Yeah. And they're doing more seasons, right? Or
I hope so. I don't know that that's clear, but I really hope so. It's so good because it was like a property that HBO or Warner Brothers kind of sold
yeah.
off.
Well, yeah, it was part of their whole like every we need cash. Cash.
Right. But
Amazon's
that
like,
whole strategy has been very short-sighted. So I don't know if they're part of that was the agreement to make another season. So, yeah.
I'm definitely not sure. I think that Amazon was happy with how it turned out, and it seemed like it was well received. So I think usually with these, it's a even if it's not a full season order, a multi-season order, there's probably an option in there somewhere.
Hmm.
Again, Amazon's got the money.
Right.
Yeah, David Zaslav is cashing those checks if
Right.
Jeff Bezos is writing them. So, who knows when it'll happen though? That's the one thing that's changed in the streaming era. Shows don't happen every year anymore. They happen whenever.
Right. Right.
Now, as far as the new year of, comic book properties, 2025, we're chock full of stuff. What would you say you're the most looking forward to, in terms of any either, Marvel or DC?
Yeah, I'm trying to weigh DC projects that I know are happening next year. I guess I really guess it's Fantastic Four is next year,
Yeah, Fantastic
right?
Four is next summer.
So Fantastic Four is kind of in a tier kind of on its own because that's got the most pressure on it, I guess. So it's kind of the one like I want to see how are we going to pull this off? Do we pull this off? Basically, is what I want to see. And then I am very excited for Daredevil, Born Again, and Thunderbolts. Also, like I think that's going to be a
That
good
feels
movie.
like that has the least pressure. Thunderbolts
Right.
does.
And yeah, and so like in a way, like I feel like it's going to be the most fun because it's almost like that sports team that's like full of players who are too young to know that there's any pressure on them at all, and they get far in the playoffs. Like it feels like that, where it's like there's no one's asking for Thunderbolts. So if this is really good, then fantastic. And it doesn't feel like they're trying to make it, overly prestigey to the point of being pretentious. It just feels like they're going to make a fun movie, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And it's kind of all kind of writing on whether or not David Harbour and Florence Pugh are charming, and they are. So I think it's going to work.
Yeah, and the inverse of that, unfortunately, is Captain America: Brave New World, which feels like it has all the pressure in the world, despite having a lot against it. It has a lot going against it, particularly in this politically fraught environment that we're in. And it's next up is up in February, and it's got the burden of being the fourth movie in a Captain America franchise. It's got the burden of not having the Captain America that people traditionally associate with Captain America, a leading man that has never carried a movie before on his own.
So you're saying that there is a black protagonist incumbent who's really been handed the keys to the Corvette, as it were, by his predecessor, who is a white man born prior to the World War, not even older than a boomer, actually, is Steve Rogers, to the White House against a red monster.
Yeah,
And there's also probably some problematic Israel stuff in there. Wow.
yeah, yeah. I
Man,
mean,
I
that's
don't know that I can see that.
no, yeah. I mean, it's a lot,
And there are
and
strong political headwinds against it. Wow. Huh. Wow.
Yeah,
Hmm.
despite initial enthusiasm, it seems that the traditional forces that are reactionary against it, while also generally more progressive forces are also against it. It seems to not be left enough or right enough to keep everybody happy.
And even though this black protagonist has kind of been there for a while, people still feel like they don't know this black
Yeah, yeah.
protagonist.
And it's supported
Huh.
from right next to the known commodity.
Been there the whole
Um,
time.
yeah.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
yeah. Well, we will see. We will see how that goes.
Honestly, the more you were talking, the more I was like, wow, that metaphor really just keeps going. It just keeps giving. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I am
But I
worried
will say
about.
that I will say I thought the last trailer was very good though.
I don't know what was in the last trailer that I didn't see in a prior trailer, so I'm trying to remember. Maybe just more Red Hulk.
I think it was just how the trailer was constructed. It kind of felt like more like political thriller
Yeah,
style. Again, it's just a trailer. The movie's the movie. But sometimes trailers feel a little cut and pasty, and this one, seemed like it had a little bit more going on.
I will say that we're going to be put into a position, and it's a really shitty position that our side of the fandom gets put into, where it's like there are legitimate questions going into this movie, but the the bro dudes who are just going to say like, my Captain America isn't black or whatever, basically force us into a position to like defend the movie because you can't just attack it because Sam Wilson
Yeah.
is Captain America. But I do have valid questions about like, is Anthony Mackie a leading man? I don't know that he is. Like, I really don't. I've
I
never
mean,
seen.
I've generally been, I think he's a very, I think he's a nice man, and
Sure,
I think he's a talented actor, but he hasn't demonstrated leading man potential in anything I've seen him in.
right, right. And it also, like, I will also say, just from the trailers that I have seen, it oddly feels like I guess what's called a legacy sequel at this point, like kind of like Force Awakens was basically New Hope. It's like this really feels like a Winter Soldier movie, but with the Sam Wilson sphere of characters, where it's like Isaiah Bradley is going to be the Winter Soldier activated, Manchurian candidate kind of, assassin.
I mean,
It
I
feels like
do think
that.
that's the vibe. I think that's what they're hoping for. I think that they're trying to say this is our Winter Soldier,
Right,
but in the hopes that that's going to get people to want to see it. But unfortunately, what it also does is invite comparisons.
right.
And I mean, one thing that Winter Soldier, I would say had going for it that this movie doesn't is it still had that connection between Steve and Bucky that started in the first movie, that emotional through line. And we were already sold on Steve by that point as, as the guy, the main character of the Captain America movies. Even though we had Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I didn't feel like we came out of that feeling more strongly about Sam Wilson, Captain America, as we're ready to see him in the big chair, with the big shield.
Yeah, this is the issue. Is like I think that Anthony Mackie is fine. Like I've never seen Anthony Mackie in something and been like he was terrible in that, But I'm really racking my brain as to like what have I seen Anthony Mackie lead in other than Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which was mixed. Like it was just and probably not his
And
fault, It's
also,
just
I would still call that a two-hander. I would still call that, him and Sebastian Stan more
it is
so
called Falcon
than,
and the Winter Soldier. Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah, I mean, meanwhile, like, I just finished watching Cross on Prime with Aldous Hodge, and I'm like, that guy can be a leading man. Like, that guy
yeah,
can,
that
can
guy's got gravitas, and
exactly. And
presence.
And I'm not saying that Anthony Mackie can't do that, but I'm saying I don't think he has done that. And I think that this is where, like, you, when you were casting for Sam Wilson, generally, and they usually do this, it's like, generally, it's like someone who's been in like an indie film or two and like has led those, or like him from the TV series he was the second lead on for however many years. With Anthony Mackie, it's like he's that guy. He's in a lot of things, but he's
But
never.
my question is, looking back, had the Sam Wilson becomes Captain America storyline happened at the time that he was introduced in the MCU?
Think so, because Winter Soldier is what, 14? 2014?
Yeah, wasn't
I'm trying to think, when was Sam Wilson Captain America? I
wasn't
thought he was by then.
2015?
Maybe, but oh man, I don't know now. And I don't have my computer open to
Yeah,
Google
because
it either, but yeah.
I know Hydra Cap happened in 2016 because people were equating it to the election.
Right, okay. Huh.
So maybe it was right around 2014, which means the casting probably happened, a year or two, a year or two before.
Had Sam
Well,
Wilson ever been Captain America in the comics before? I'm not really that up on Sam Wilson's like
I don't,
entire history.
if he had, it was definitely very brief blip on the radar. It wasn't the same level as it was in the all new, all different era. And it's possible that, you know, my thought process was that they thought they were probably some years off. And they were, I guess, some years off from introducing Sam Wilson as Captain America if they were ever going to do it. And, unfortunately, uh, Anthony Mackie didn't become, star of that magnitude. And, because like we said before, Marvel will often cast people that they think, their careers are on the upswing in the hopes that they'll catch them, you know, before they're established, and it just may have happened that they overshot in terms of their intentions of what they had hoped Sam Wilson, the American live action could be. I actually was surprised when they announced that they were going to do a solo Captain America movie after after Falcon and Winter Soldier. I assumed he was just going to transition into Avengers movies and be one of the pieces of the ensemble there.
So even giving them the grace that like Sam Wilson, let's say Sam Wilson had not been Cap yet in the comics when he was introduced in the MCU. At some point they knew Steve was going to give the shield to Sam at the end of Endgame. And in retrospect, it feels like what they needed to have happen was Sam needed to have a moment in Infinity War or Endgame where he effectively is the leader for a period of time. For some, even if it's just a portion of the team that he's the leader of. If he had been like Don Cheadle, like Rhodey's role in Infinity War, like where it's like he's like, yeah, that's a court martial, when Steve comes back or whatever. If at some point it was Sam who was that character, who was kind of given some sort of authority, so that when Steve gives him the shield at the end, you're like, yeah, I've actually seen him be kind of Captain America-y, before.
I mean,
Something.
or you just kind of keep him as the underdog and you just have, that's his battle that, he's constantly being compared to Steve and, all of his antagonists are people who are kind of bringing that meta narrative into the text, you know.
Mm,
That's why I assumed that at some point they were going to introduce Hydra Steve, so that he could actually have to face off against the ghost of, the
right.
ghost of his predecessor, the evil version of his predecessor. I mean, if I was penning Civil War, I would definitely have a cameo of Chris Evans as Hydra Steve
You mean Secret
for,
Wars?
yeah,
You said Civil War.
sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
for Secret Wars, yeah, or whatever what's the other one? Doomsday.
Doomsday.
Whatever multiverse storyline. At one
Yeah.
point it was Kang Dynasty. But when we get introduced to whichever multiversal antagonists we get introduced to, assuming that there are multiples, one of them should be evil Steve Rogers because he needs to overcome, in addition to overcoming whatever racism he has to overcome the fact that he's not Steve Rogers. I mean, that's a big, that's in every line of the trail, every version of the trailer of this movie is like, I'm not Steve Rogers. But it's like, okay, but you see how it's like, you're not Steve Rogers. No, I'm not.
Right.
Okay. But is Sam Wilson like who is Sam Wilson? Like, why is Sam Wilson, you know, someone that we should look up to? We haven't really answered that question.
Right. It's a question of like, I mean, I understand the implication in the trailer of like, you're right. I'm not Steve Rogers, meaning I'm gonna do this the Sam Wilson way. But it's been what, 5 movies he's been in at least, and the TV show. I don't know what the Sam Wilson way is. Like, there is no
Yeah.
quintessential Sam Wilson, method. So, whereas if you were to tell me like, I'm not Steve Rogers, you're right, I'm Tony Stark, I know that that means I cut the knot, or I you know what I mean? I cut the wire. So yeah,
Like
there,
even if it was something as like because people made the case, it's like, well, Sam got hooked up by the Wakandans. Like his Captain America suit, has is high tech. You know what? Give me that then. Give me like him chopping it up with Shuri and the Wakandans, and like, look, I know I'm American, but so like T'Challa's not here anymore, but I got you.
right, right, right,
Like, man, it's not perfect, but at least it's something, you know,
right. Yeah.
because he's not even T'Challa. He's not even Shuri. He's not even Shuri.
No.
I saw Wakanda Forever. Like,
Is he even M'Baku at this point? Like, I know M'Baku. I know, how,
you know,
like, I don't know Sam Wilson, and I've seen Sam Wilson for so long. I don't, God, it really is like fucking Kamala. I know that character, but I don't know what
I
it
don't know his
means.
strengths. I
Yeah.
don't. I mean, the closest thing I would say to his strengths, which we kind of got a taste of it in the Falcon and Winter Soldier, is that we know he's like a sensitive dude. You know, we know he's a social worker. He deals with vets in trauma. So he's more apt to try to talk a situation, presumably more apt to try to talk a situation through than lead with his fists. Okay, cool, but how is that gonna like, is that gonna take down the Red Hulk? Like,
Right. You're literally
are you gonna
fighting the Hulk
are you gonna have therapy with? Are we gonna get to the of Thunderbolt Rose's trauma? Is
as
that when
ODB
it's
would ask. Are you going to psychology his shit? Like, is that what we're doing? Yeah.
you know? So
So all this to say, when it comes to Captain America: Brave New World, the trailers give me trepidation. A, because it does all feel like they're showing me the same set piece in all of it, which I guess that happens. But it also feels like it's kind of the climax of the movie, which surprises me. But also, I have questions about Anthony Mackie as a leading man. I have questions about Sam Wilson as a character because I really just don't feel like they defined that character very well at all. Aside from the fact that he is a proud black man, which is like, yes, that is a part of his character. He's a proud black man from the South. Cool. But I mean, like, I don't know anything about his strengths or weaknesses in terms of other than, like you said, he's a social worker.
and I
I don't
wouldn't. I
understand.
mean, weirdly enough, I wouldn't even call him a proud black man in the sense of like being like full black. Like I sort of see him as kind of like a black military man. Where it's like
Yeah, yeah,
I'm black, but I'm wholesome. I'm decent. I'm honorable. He's an honorable black man.
yeah. Right, right, right. Yes, yes.
Some might call him corny. Like many have called him corny. In fact,
And you
like
see, that's another thing is like, I don't think Anthony Mackie is a corny dude off screen. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think he's corny. I think he's maybe a little extra
Offbeat.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know that I think he's corny. But yeah, but it's Sam Wilson, yeah, I would say is probably, like you said, like a military man, would have voted for Colin Powell in '08 if he ran against Obama, but didn't, obviously never happened. One of those. Like, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
trepidatious about this film. I really am. I don't think it's gonna, well, apparently they're going to reshoots now.
Well, I've heard a bunch of different things. Like, again, if a movie's going to culminate with your hero fighting a Hulk, I have questions, just
Hmm.
practical questions, because I wouldn't give Steve Rogers a one-on-one battle against a Hulk either, you
Right.
know? So I just need to know kind of what we think the arc of his character is supposed to be, especially because he's going to probably go right from this movie into Secret Wars. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we kind of knew the through line of Steve Rogers' character. He was a man out of time.
Hmm.
He had this journey of being, scrawny kid, but he's got a good heart, heroic heart, hates bullies, gets these powers. He meets a girl, falls in love with a girl, becomes a hero, loses his best friend, wakes up in the present day, and his girl is older, much older.
Right. Yeah.
His friend isn't, been turned into a killing machine, and
Hmm.
America is much different from the America that he fought for.
Right.
There's a lot of layers to his story that you want to see play out over the course of his three movies. And even though his three movies have a lot of other things going on in them, it's still ultimately about Steve's arc. And even taking his arc through into the two Avengers movies, into the Infinity War and Endgame, where he ends at a natural endpoint for his character. I don't know what the arc is supposed to be for Sam. And despite the fact that we've seen him in these other movies in a supporting role, he's never felt particularly wanting in terms of needing to grow, in terms of needing to get better, level up. He's leveled up now. He has a shield. Now he has a suit, but the leveling up didn't feel like an extension of his story. It just felt like, well, he's got the move now, so he's got to deal with being the man rather. I mean, I guess if we want to use like a sports analogy, it's like, all right, well, you used to be the number two guy on a team, and now you have your own franchise. Like, can you carry a franchise on your own?
But the thing is, was he even ever the number two guy? Like when you watch Winter Soldier, is Sam Wilson the number two? Is he
No,
Steve Rogers' number two in that film? No,
no, that's Black Widow.
because Black Widow. And even when you see Civil War, when Steve has his team, it's still Black Widow, Scarlet Witch, and then Sam Wilson. Like
Yeah,
he wasn't even ever number two. He's just part of the gang. It'd be
yeah,
like if Ti became Ant Man. Like, yeah, I guess you were there. Yeah, I guess, yeah, technically, like, or even like David Desmalchin became Ant Man. It's like, it's just, it's not. He wasn't number two. He gets that series. He gets the Shield, and then he gets the series. And like I said, mixed results. A lot of it having to do with COVID. A lot of it not Anthony Mackie's fault. But heading into this movie, if this isn't like a home run, I really wonder about the future of that franchise, period. Like, I really do.
I mean, I have questions about whether they have intentions of it being a franchise rather than just a one-off.
Right, right.
Because again, Sam Wilson doesn't have a particularly deep roster of rogues.
Yeah, he's just got his Latino Falcon. He's really got, like, in his sphere of characters.
Yeah.
His Latino Falcon, his sidekick. But I do think that the same way Steve got to have the dance with Peggy, Sam, at the end of Secret Wars, needs to be given a small business loan that needs to be approved. That needs to be his moment. Like, you can even play the Steve Rogers music, like the same dance music, but it's him getting his small business loan.
Well, what's
Here
better,
for it.
small business loan or an endorsement deal with
Right. Yeah. Right.
it
Exactly.
gets his first official invented paycheck. It's
Yeah.
like, actually, we realized that you were owed many years of back pay from your years of service for the Avengers, and here's this is we don't even call it reparations,
Yeah. I'm gonna
but
say, sir, you want to see YouTube melt down? Give Sam Wilson reparations. Man, that would be magical.
so that's the that. So what would you say has more? Still think Superman has more writing on it though. Um,
Sure. Yeah. Yes, I would agree with that. I would agree with. Of course, it's Superman.
uh, Yeah, it's Superman, and it's we still haven't solved the people think that Superman is out of touch and not of this era. Despite the fact that we've had, I don't know if you've ever watched the Superman and Lois television
Hmm.
series. I mean, I think that that show did a lot for showing how Superman can still be relevant in the present, which, again, making him a dad is the perfect life hack for think he's corny. Well, guess who's also corny? Your dad.
I mean, it is also too like it's something that like another universe version of Zack Snyder was going for in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, is the idea that like the world that Superman is introduced to is maybe jaded and skeptical and cynical, and then he reintroduces the idea of hope and earnestness and trust and inspiration. But Zack Snyder doesn't
Yeah.
personally believe in those
Well,
things.
even more than
So,
that, though, I agree with you, but the Zack Snyder movies made him a product of that world, rather than, I think that
yes.
it could have worked if everyone around him was jaded and, cynical, and he was just this beacon of optimism that everyone, stood sort of starkly, weirdly out against. But he just, up until the point, actually, no, never in the Zack Snyder's era, did he not just seem like just as cynical and just as jaded as everybody else. He just happened to put on a Superman suit and
Right. Yeah.
kind of be like, oh, well, I'm a hero. I mean, I get where you're coming from. I get why it would be ridiculous for me to be saving kittens from trees. Like that's wild. I literally want to save civilians when I destroy a skyscraper. I probably
Right.
should do that. But, I think that all these other Superman depictions that we've seen in other media since then have tried to be a corrective for that and
Hmm.
have the wholesome, all shucks, Smallville, if you will, incarnation of Clark Kent that is a little goofy, is a little corny, but is endearing and winning and charming in his own way. And I'm hoping, I mean, I do kind of trust James Gunn's ability to tell that story. Um, and I think that he has assembled a good cast of actors. I think the biggest challenge that Superman's dealing with is the fact that it's at once trying to be the best Superman movie that it can be and deal with those criticisms while also quieting the people who've been chomping at the bit for what's the DCU going to be? And they're going to want all their DCU questions answered all at once. And I just don't think you can do both of those things at the same time. You know, you should focus on telling the best Superman movie and leave a lot of open questions as to where the DCU is headed rather than try to spell out the arc of the next 4 or 5 movies in this movie.
Yeah. It's actually it's something that Gunn is bringing upon himself, inviting that sort of questioning because of the way in which this Superman film, which I know is not the first project of this universe, but is the first film of this universe, and so it's kind of like the same way like a store will have like an opening and then a grand opening. The like when Iron Man happened, it was Tony Stark, all like in this world, and then it's Nick Fury saying, "You think you're alone? There's a whole universe of people out here." With this film, we know there are 4 other superheroes in this movie. Like, this is Superman joining a universe in progress. So
Yeah.
So we are questioning, like, well, how does this work? Like, what is the, and not even being critical, it's really just more like curious, like, how, what is the vision? I don't know this
Yeah.
attempt. I've never seen this maneuver before, so like I'm interested in how you're going to do
Well, part of
this.
yeah, and another part of it is that it's not supposed to be an origin story. So we're meeting Superman media res, right? We're meeting him, fully formed. We'll probably get some flashbacks, into,
Hmm.
so it's yeah, it's almost like if instead of getting Iron Man 1, we got like Iron Man 3. Like
Right, right,
as the first Iron Man movie. It's like, oh yeah, he was in the Avengers, he helped save the world. For
right,
any, ironmongers, out there. Like,
right. I mean, or even like I remember vividly seeing Iron Man 2, and just the scene where they're at, is it Shipley's Donuts with it's him and Nick Fury and
Scorpion?
Natasha,
Oh, okay.
and he's got like the element in the arc reactor is killing him, and she like injects him or something, but they're sitting there in a donut shop and they're in full costume. It's like there's Iron Man in his suit and Nick Fury in his trench coat and eye patch, and and Natasha's wearing her Black Widow, uniform, her Shield like issued Black Widow uniform, and I just remember going like 5 years ago this would have been insane. 5 years ago this looks like Comic Con, but right now I'm buying that this universe exists. It's kind of like that, like you're starting your universe in that moment where there's already a Green Lantern, there's already a Hawk person. I don't even remember which Hawk person. Hawk
Yeah, I think
girl?
it's Hawk Girl. Yeah.
Yeah. It's Isabella Merced, isn't it?
Mercer. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's already a Mr. Terrific. Like it's interesting. It's an interesting like approach, and I'm not used to this, and so there are questions about how is this going to work. I don't question at all that James Gunn can deliver like an earnest and wholesome Superman that works in his universe. I don't question that at all. I think that makes sense to me.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's far, I mean, I think what I'm saying is that the difference between what the movie is in terms of what it aspires to be and how it's going to be received by people who are just at this point conditioned to find the flaws. Uh,
Right.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Sure.
I think it's going to be hard to get 100% approval rating for this movie also because it's Superman.
Well,
There's
that's funny because I was actually going to add that it's also starting. It's also starting with two strikes because of the there has to be an online campaign that this is not Snyder and therefore is
no, yeah,
bad. So it's already. I guarantee that film already has a negative score on Rotten Tomatoes if it's up already. You know what I'm saying? Like, I bet Rotten Tomatoes has to stop audience reviews right now because the same thing they did with Captain Marvel, where this isn't Zack Snyder's was the best thing that ever was, and he wasn't given a fair shot and stopped the steal.
yeah,
And so yeah, he's got headwinds against him, but it's James Gunn, and I think that Uh, you know, Guardians 3 is maybe it's not the best Marvel movie, but I do think it's up there, and it is. Guardians 3 is the only Marvel film that has made me like weep. So like I think he's capable of giving us a superhero film that is still funny and still doesn't feel corny or hokey, but can still deliver emotional moments. Even if the emotional moments are manipulative, I mean, film is manipulative. It's a manipulative genre, like or
yeah.
a medium. I mean, so yeah, I'm not worried at all about that. And I'm not even really worried about the dude bros who are gonna Snyderverse it. Like whatever, they're gonna exist. They exist. There's nothing you can do about them.
And I hope that by the time the movie comes out, we'll have an idea of when Peacemaker is coming out, and there'll probably be a trailer for that, and a lot of the world building questions. Because I think at this point, while it hasn't been officially announced, I think at this point we can assume that Supergirl is the next movie
Hmm.
that's going to come out. It's the one that has the script, has the director, has the stars. We've got a lot of casting news that's come out about it.
It's
I think
true.
that's probably next up, which means to the extent that they do post credits, I'm going to assume they do post credits. They'll do a post credit tease for Supergirl, but then there'll also be some kind of trailer, a little bit more of an idea of what's happening around Superman, so that it's not dealing with all of the responsibility and you push it, to push that meta story forward.
Yep. Yeah, fully agree with that. I don't know what other TV series. Like, I'm not really familiar with their TV slate because I just kind of
Yeah,
learned in the past couple of years that like whatever they are announcing, it's in flux. So like take it
yeah,
with a
for
grain of
sure.
salt. So I'm not sure. Like, were there other animated series that were supposed to be coming out other
Well,
than Creature
in terms of
Commandos?
just the TCU, in terms of Commandos,
Okay.
obviously we have what started to trickle out about Lanterns,
All
but I
right.
don't think that's supposed to come out this year. I mean, next year, 2025. But
Can
maybe
I
there's
just
rumors
call
that's
it? I'm gonna call it right now. Lanterns. They're saying is like True Detective, but Green Lanterns. Kyle Chandler's playing
Hal Jordan.
Hal Jordan. I kept wanting to say Guy Gardner. I was like, nope. And I mean, he's gonna be the bad guy, right? He's gonna be the
You
bad guy.
see, I'm thinking not. I'm actually thinking that they're gonna play it like it's not gonna be Training Day. I really don't think it's gonna be Training Day. You know, although that would be kind of cool. I,
Yes, it would be very cool.
no, I really do think it's gonna be that whole like one guy's past his prime, the other guy is the new young
Okay.
hot, hotness. Because what I think is gonna happen is that Guy Gardner is supposed to be in Superman. I think Guy Gardner's gonna die. I don't know if he's going to die in the movie or in the post-credit scene. And I think he's going to die. And his ring is going to find himself a John Stewart. And that's going to be the connective tissue, you know, from one project to the next.
That's
And,
interesting. Yeah.
and John Stewart is going to be, I just got this ring and I'm, being oriented into the Green Lantern Corps. This is my first mission. And this is the guy who's supposed to show me the ropes. And he's jaded and he's cynical and he's seen some stuff and he's too old for the shit. It's gonna be a role reversal. The white man is too old for the shit and the black man
Right.
is optimistic.
Right. Right.
But the thing that bothers me about the Lanterns project is the fact that I just don't think it should be grounded. I just don't think that that's the best way to introduce people to. I think if it was just a one-off story
Hmm.
involving just one random lantern, self-contained, you could do a grounded story. But these are, the two, you know, A and B, Earth lanterns, and you got to get people to forget about that Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie. Like,
Right.
I think it would be better to do a Green Lantern project that blows people away than, kind of just dumb down the power set and dump, because at that point, what are you going to do when you want to make it cinematic?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's going to be the knock when it's just oh, this ring just lets me analyze blood samples, access a database, just do police work, CSI through the Green Lantern. I think that's I think it could work as a solo as a self-contained story, but I do think that's going to upset a lot of people who are fans of Green Lantern lore and want to see Green Lanterns really do their thing in a cosmic setting. They
Yeah.
are probably the cosmic DC series.
I kind of wonder to what extent like lanterns should be their Mando, like your intergalactic cop, mission of the week series, like where and there could be an overarching story, of course. Giancarlo Esposito could be in it, but Lord knows he's in everything else. But uh, yeah, I do wonder, like making it quote unquote grounded when I mean, if you were going to do a TV series, Mando might actually be the template, like for what could work with a lantern's, kind of sheen on it. Hmm.
But I guess that's why I think that if I don't, I do think that a series like that could work. I just don't necessarily think that lanterns as a property, knowing how sprawling the lanterns lore is should be like Mandoized. I
Hmm.
think that there are probably other, give me a sec, like Martian Manhunter, for instance, could be like the Mandalorian, like very single character focused with and have him be the entry point, kind of the same way that we had Mando be the entry point into these other stories, which were a lot bigger and took on a lot more lore. And some might argue that, Mando was at its best when it wasn't trying to carry the burden of all the lore,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
you know?
I mean, I guess it depends on what they mean by grounded. If they mean grounded in terms of like we're stripping down the power set, we're stripping down the sort of cosmic.
Well, just the fact that they're supposed to be solving a murder in the American heartland,
Yeah,
two intergalactic space cops with cosmic powers coming down to like Iowa.
sure. Yeah, but if it's like, but if it is the murder of Guy Gardner, you know what I'm saying? Like there are ways to do it. Like that's just where he died. We don't know why he
Yeah,
died this way or the way that he died, even though it's in this, sort of more, simplified setting. It's not in like on a spaceship or it's not, whatever in a nebula or something. But the way he died is like, no, this wasn't Earth. It wasn't an Earth death. So something happened to this person.
yeah.
Blah blah.
I mean, I mean, and again, maybe I'm just falling victim to, being a slave to the synopsis, because it's possible that that's the catalyst, that they
Right,
start off trying to solve a murder, and then the mystery sprawls and it
right.
becomes bigger than just one small town,
Yeah.
and they have to go to space to like see where the mystery takes them. Like
I will
if it
say it's troubling to say that it's True Detective, but with the lanterns, because everything with True Detective always comes up to like there are some weird Southern pedophile rings, and I really hope I don't want that. I don't need that in my Green Lanterns. Thank you.
yeah, I mean, because obviously your mileage may vary when it comes to something like Obi-Wan. But like Obi-Wan sort of starts one place, and
Hmm.
then you're jumping from planet to planet, ostensibly still in search of one mission.
Hmm.
I think if the synopsis was something like that, where the mystery starts in the American heartland and then becomes this intergalactic mystery, that seems more in keeping with the Lantern being a multi-planetary space organization that that covers the entire universe.
Yeah, yeah. Or even if like, yeah, if like whatever the mystery is, if the sort of the game at play is to keep zooming out and zooming out and zooming out until you know you're basically hinting at like you're seeing symbols and you don't know what they are, but we're like, oh shit, that's dark side. Like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like, cool, okay, cool, cool, cool.
yeah.
Um,
So, but the people involved seem super competent. Lindelof, you know, it's some of the I can't remember some of the other people involved. I mean, and the actors, good actors. I think it's going to be high quality. I just, again, unfortunately, when we go over these stories, these news sprinkles of things that haven't been completely created, that are years off,
hmm.
you can't help but question all the different ways that it could go awry,
Yeah,
particularly when you don't know the bigger picture.
yeah. I was gonna say like you don't remember who else was involved. We should just make people up. Like it's Lindelof. It's I think Oprah said she was involved. Like Russell Crowe, which that was cool. You know,
Yeah, Denzel's gonna have a cameo.
Jimmy Carter. That was strange. Didn't expect former President Jimmy Carter.
Yeah,
But, yeah, yeah. Hmm. Cool Mo
but
D. It's, it's
I
weird.
heard he's working on the theme song.
Yeah.
Uh, um, But yeah, I'm trying to think. So there was Thunderbolts. Is there oh I was not joking, but I was like, oh yeah, wasn't it supposed to be a fourth movie, a fourth Marvel movie that was gonna come out? Oh yeah, yeah. I guess this is the point when we talk about Blade.
The alleged Blade film.
This is the
Blade is the
point.
new Flash.
And I mean, so I have a bone of contention with a lot of the people who get mad about Blade not coming out on schedule.
Okay.
I I want Blade to be really good. And I also acknowledge that but for Mahershala Ali saying he wanted to do a Blade movie, they probably wouldn't have put a Blade movie into development on the timetable that they put it in development. I think that when you consider what those three or two and a half, if we want to be honest about how people talk about the Blade movies, if you want, when people talk about the Blade property, what it actually is versus what it is reputationally are two different things.
Hmm.
Wesley Snipes made that character iconic in terms of the culture, but in terms of the box office, not so much. And the numbers that Blade has been proven to do are not the same as the numbers that would be considered success if Marvel put out that movie. And I think it's perfectly acceptable for Marvel to say we want to make a broader movie that makes a lot of money, particularly when we're two top tier black actors down. We have this star that maybe isn't A-list, but we had our Anthony Mackie conversation. I think Mahershala Ali has a ton more leading man charisma.
I was saying not A-list. Didn't he win two Academy Awards?
Yeah, yeah, but not necessarily in the box office though, in sense.
Sure,
You know,
sure.
this is his franchise. This is his first opportunity to be the guy in a big money movie. And while some people have been blaming him for that, for putting too much pressure on the movie, when you have two Oscars and this is your big commercial play, you want to make it count. So I'm sure there have been conversations between him and Marvel. Some of the like I know people don't know how metaphors work anymore. So like when he says he wants this to be his Black Panther, he doesn't mean it literally in the sense that it's going to be about Wakandans and have the ramifications
Wait,
that
do
the Black
people
Panther.
think this?
Unfortunately, yes. Every time I've heard people respond to the fact that it's been rumored that he wants it to be his Black Panther, they don't get that he means it in the sense of he wants it to be like a very successful franchise that he is at the helm of and as the face of.
Right.
You know, like yeah, don't get me started. Well, I'm started. So when I am so if we were sitting in the room together and someone said, "All right, we're making a Blade movie in the MCU. Like, how much money should we shoot for at the box office? Like, what's a good budget? What's a good range of outcomes as far as what we think the appeal of the franchise and the character could be?" I would say somewhere in the $600,000 to $800,000 range if you want to put real money into the movie. Now, if you wanted to make something on a lower budget end, then you'll probably get a more low budget outcome. But unfortunately, the way that the media, if Blade makes Ant-Man money, it's going to be viewed as a failure. Even if the budget is 120 million.
Right, right. I know what you meant.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
we'd rather put 200 million into something with aspirations to do 700 million and make it a bigger, broader, more accessible movie than do something that's more niche, that is more in line with the older Blade movies.
Hmm.
And I think that's the problem. I think the problem is that that's a harder thing to imagine script wise.
I mean, that's probably the conundrum they're finding themselves in, but I do think they're overthinking it because I do think that like your budget should be something under $100 million, and your goal should be make the baddest ass, John Wick, but with black vampires film, and people will flock to it. and set it in the Marvel universe, but it doesn't even need to connect to anything.
I mean, I hear you, but like I said, I think that I think that if you made a sub $100 million, first of all, I don't think that's what Mahershala signed up for. Like the cheapest Marvel movie that's ever been made.
Well, sure.
No, I mean, PR wise, that's gonna have some that's gonna raise some flag, especially again if he's not feeling it. And I also think that even the John Wick comp, it's only the last John Wick movie, the one that is the broadest and the one that is the most expensive and goes to the most locales and has the most money on the on the screen that
Hmm.
actually returned the kind of money that we would consider successful for a Marvel movie. The other ones were very moderately budgeted and had very moderate returns. Again, you know, 3-4x, but 3-4x on 60 million.
Right, right.
Like a Marvel movie, even again, it's a conundrum, because you can say that, hey, we made a Marvel movie for $60 million, but Deadpool was able to do that because it was Fox. The first Deadpool was able to do that because it was Fox. Like Disney's, Kevin Feige's Marvel Cinematic Universe, they're gonna have to have a major PR spin when they put out that first movie that's sub 100 million. And for it to be the Black movie,
I mean, yeah, I guess there's the optics of that, but like I was thinking of like something along the lines of a Deadpool or a Joker, Todd Phillips Joker, or like I don't know what the budget on the first Venom film was, but weren't these all sub?
I think Venom was about 80. I think the first Venom was,
Yeah,
was about
these are
80
all
million.
sub $100 million films that made a billion. Like Venom made a billion.
Yeah,
I don't know what. I don't know what Deadpool probably made in the sevens or eights.
yeah,
Like,
Deadpool made about 750. I think made about 900, and of course
yeah,
Joker made, yeah. But again, Joker that had a lot of other stuff going on that was hyping that movie up. I don't think they made it with the expectation it was going to be as successful as it was.
no, they absolutely didn't. But these are what these are that are separate from John Wick are characters that people are familiar with. Even people know Deadpool who don't know Deadpool, right? Like it was just like a character that like you didn't have to read the comics to really know to get Deadpool. You also knew Ryan Reynolds and you knew the brand, right? You knew him. And you knew that it was set in the X-Men universe, which brings its own, you're bringing some people,
Ish.
yes,
Ish.
right, but ish. Like you knew that, like I don't know, I don't remember if the trailer showed Colossus, but I think they did. Like in Venom, Venom. Everybody knows Venom. Like
Yeah.
that's you're talking Zycon Venom, and then Joker is Joker, and we knew. Obviously there was the prestige of it as well, and there's also like the magnus of it too. That's bringing some of it, but I don't think that that's why the movie made a billion. Well, it was because of white incels. I do think that um, it felt filmy. It felt
Yeah. That's
film
yeah. I
boyish.
was gonna say it felt prestige. It,
Yeah,
it felt prestige. It didn't feel. It wasn't set. Again, it wasn't set in any established universe.
it wasn't
It
set in
was.
any established cinematic universe, but it was set in the Batman universe. It was set in Gotham, and there were Waynes. Like there was enough there to tie it where you can go, this is a different version of this story, but we are
Yeah.
still in that story. It's not like he was in, you know, Houston. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
he's
I
still
mean,
in
but
Gotham.
it was very much Scorsese, New York City.
A
It was.
million quadrillion percent. Although I will say that version of Gotham, it might be the most successful thing about that film for me is like I was like, oh, I buy this. This is the Gotham that exists in Batman Year One. Like this is in that book, like it feels like
Yeah.
70s New York because it
Yeah.
is.
What it reminds me of. So I don't know if you had. If there was a pitch that was going around for like pre Netflix
Yes.
for Hell's Kitchen and Daredevil and that milieu of sort of like 70s.
Was it Joe Carnegie or something who made
I,
like a sizzle reel? Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It was
Very much so.
it was very much in that vein,
Yes.
which would also have had to be an alternate universe or an Elseworlds or even potentially a prequel. Now that's the other thing. If they had wanted to do Blade as basically a blaxploitation riff
Hmm.
prequel set in the 1970s, you know, they would have definitely needed to make sure that they got the the right people to make it.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Well, yeah, like Mario Van Peebles has to be the director on it. Yeah, yeah. No, I think that there is like if you could make this movie for okay, maybe not less than 100, maybe less than 150 though. Like it doesn't need to be. What I'm saying is it doesn't need to be laser fights in the air at the end. It can just be
100% that.
rated R martial
Yeah.
arts, bloody, gory gore fest where Blade kills 300 people in the film, but they're all vampires, so you don't care, and they're nameless, and there was that article that had like different pitches that like had been seen where one is just like The Raid but with Blade. Fuck yes, like that's such a simple movie to make and people would go see it. Even if the movie would not make $1 billion, let's say, but if it makes $600 million on a $100 million budget and then becomes like the cult film that like that a John Wick or a Raid film is, and then the sequel, Blade
Yeah.
Two, makes $1 billion regardless.
Yeah.
Like it just does.
But I think that's probably where there's a little bit of a with Academy Award winning actor Mahershala Ali,
Yeah.
who's like I didn't sign up to be like cast aside for my stunt double for 90% of this movie. It's like I do want to actually act.
But meanwhile, Kevin Feige's like, we didn't sign you up for anything. You came to us with no idea. What do you have? I honestly, of all of the different potentialities, I think the most likely thing is that Mahershala Ali is not Blade by the time this film gets made. I really do. I just think like
But then why make the movie? You
because
know
it's
what I
still
mean? Like
Blade. Because I mean, like it's still
no, but what
Blade,
I'm saying
and
is it doesn't at that point it doesn't have to be a movie. At that point it could just be a Disney Plus series. Like if
yeah.
once you lose the movie star element, you he I mean, I don't see it as the problem per se, but he's
Hmm.
the problem in the sense that you have to make the movie that satisfies him and is in keeping with his stature. Once he's out, then you can just make you can make that project, but now you can make that project on Disney Plus. You can make it as a special presentation. The
Yes,
Raid, the Blade
it
Raid,
really should be a special presentation.
the $75 million raid with vampires. Everyone watches it and it kills it on Disney Plus.
Yes,
Like
yes.
yeah, you could do that, but then it's a different proposition. Like the point that I've sort of made is that there's a way that you can think of Blade as someone who's been, you know how, bear with me. Do you remember you remember the Highlander series,
Yes. The TV series or the series of films?
the TV series?
Yes. Yeah.
You remember the idea that now I didn't watch it religiously, but I watched bits and pieces. You know the idea that the Highlanders have been existing for hundreds of years in different time periods and in different societies, and episodically you kind of explore the histories of the Highlanders. I think that a bigger budgeted Blade movie probably has a lot in common with the Highlanders in the sense of Blade's been around for, you know, about 100 years in different societies, in
Hmm.
different cultures, picking up skills along the way. You know, the blade that we now know is the culmination of all the different vampires he's fought in all the different societies. So you can have your set pieces, you can have your Asian set piece, you can have your 1950s or whatever 1970s set piece, or you can even have your Harlem Renaissance,
Hmm.
set piece. You know what I mean? You can do the period setting, different periods, different blades, different toys. If we're being honest.
I mean, ironically, that's what Interview with the Vampire basically is. The
Yeah,
series, it's to It's a black. It's not Lestat. It was the other
Yes, Lewis.
Louis. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes,
So
Louis.
Louis.
Yes.
Yeah, and it starts off in like the maybe the 20s New Orleans, and whereas the books are set like pre-Revolutionary War or whatever, or maybe antebellum South. This one starts in the 20s in New Orleans, and it's like, and it ends. It's set in during COVID. That's the interview. The interview is occurring during COVID, and the world is kind of coming to an end. Basically because of this pandemic, and here are the vampires like ready to kind of take over, and this interview is occurring. So, it spans 100 years.
Yeah. And I could see how there were some pitches of this movie that involved that kind of epic story, you know, which would allow Mahershala to be like, cool, I can do accent work.
Yeah,
I get to wear different costumes and be in different, have different characters that I can bounce off of. I get to, show how I became this badass. You know what I mean? Like as an actor that's trying to think of like how to make the role his own, because that's the other thing. He's gotta
yeah,
he's he's gotta not just be compared to Wesley Snipes.
right,
He's gotta not just be, oh well, you're just doing a Wesley Snipes impersonation.
right.
You know, like an actor, he wants something meatier, you know, and I would imagine that the people that he's picked or have had input on as writers pitched him on cool spins on Blade's story that maybe they just couldn't live up to. They couldn't pull together in a 3-act structure.
What I really hope isn't happening is that the issues that are arising are the attempts at connecting to the rest of the universe,
Yeah, that would be
the
bad.
marvelization of it, like that's it's the inherent flaw of this iteration of the MCU is like it just does not have to connect this much, guys. It's okay.
I honestly, and this is maybe even more of an indictment on Marvel method. I think it just is a situation where they kind of don't trust their scrutiny the way that they used to.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kevin Feige's not, doesn't have eyes on every page of every script like he used to, and therefore everyone's a little bit more gun shy about what they're approving, and especially because they now have Disney, maybe less so today than before uh Deadpool and Wolverine, but
Mm-hmm.
I think Disney is probably a little bit more likely to look over and ask Marvel what they're doing and whether they think these movies are going to hit their targets.
I mean, if you want to make a prestige because you've got a two-time Oscar winner, superhero film, by all means, like go ahead, like go get, you know, Steve McQueen to direct your film, give Mahershala some character moments and some amazing monologues, and like by all means, like go ahead. Like this man is how old is he now? He's got to be in his
He's in his
mid to
50s.
mid to late 50s. Like, are we getting near 60 at this point with him? I don't know how old he is
I
entirely.
think he might be like 54. Let me look him up.
I mean, yeah, because we're I know black don't crack, but at some point, you know,
Well,
it's
yeah, at some point he's giving it all the way over. No, he's just 50. He's just
he's
50.
just 50. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
so we've got a little bit more time than I thought we did.
Yeah, he's actually younger than, what's his name? Than Fantastic. He's younger
He's not younger
than
than
Pedro
Pedro
Pascal.
Pascal.
Yeah.
Is he really?
Pedro
Pedro
Pascal's in
Pascal's.
his 50s. He's in his 50s.
I didn't know Pedro Pascal was in his 50s. I guess I didn't really ask the question, but I didn't know. What the hell?
Sorry, he's 49. My apologies.
See, white does crack, and he is.
Okay, so yeah,
Well, he is
he's 49.
Latino. He is also white.
Mm. Yeah, so they're basically in the same age cohort. But I get
Yeah,
your point. I mean, we even though Keanu is in his 50s, like we're starting to see it catch up to him.
right. Exactly. It's got to. It's just got to at some point.
And I do think that if we're going to compare Blade to John Wick, I just think we have to compare Blade to John Wick 4. We don't. like in terms of both the nature of how big the story is and the nature of what they expect as a return on their investment. Because I think
Yeah.
John Wick 4 made, 460 million, you know,
Hmm.
something. Let me look it up. 40 million. Yeah. So yeah, 440 on $100 million budget, which I'm surprised that John Wick 4 had $100 million budget. I would have thought the budget was higher.
See, they keep them low. They keep them low and slow. That doesn't make any sense. They're not making a brisket, but
But
yeah.
it, but yeah, I mean, if a Marvel movie, sorry, if Blade, I won't say a Marvel movie, but if Blade makes $100 million less than Ant-Man, like it's a tough sell.
If Blade makes $100 million less than Ant-Man, but it is of a piece with like a John Wick 4, I would be shocked because you would imagine the critical reviews would be better than they were for Ant-Man, where at best Ant-Man reviews were mixed, but I believe they were negative.
No, no, no. I'm talking about the first Ant-Man.
The first Ant-Man, okay, not
Yeah, yeah,
Quantum
yeah.
Mania.
Yeah, no, 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 no. I'm talking about, yeah, because both of those made about, I want to say about 575. The first two, you know, on $120 million budget. So they were on the low end budget wise, but
Hmm.
they were, they were fun little jaunts, like just kind of, you know, doing their thing on the outskirts of the main story, not
Yeah,
expected to be a big deal. It would be great if Blade had that level of low expectation. It's just that we know the Blade's not going to have that level of
sure.
expectation. And if it doesn't make if it doesn't make 600, 700 million, you know, even if it has $120 million budget, people are going to say, well, what was it all for? It was a waste of time.
Yeah, I guess I can see that. I think I hope they're making the best movie they can, but I really feel like at this point they're overthinking it, or it's just not going to happen. Like it's just not a match, and move on.
At this point, don't rush it. At this point, just push it back. At this point, just say, we're doing Secret Wars. We've got the X-Men coming. We have all these other projects. We have another Spider-Man come. We have all these other projects that have higher upside. They're gonna make a ton of money, and then Blade's gonna be this little fun passion project that we slip in
Hmm.
afterwards.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, there's also been that rumor that in lieu of doing Blade, they're gonna do Midnight Suns, which I mean, I understand how stacking more characters in your movie could mean that it'll make more money. You've got Oscar Isaac just kind of sitting there being a movie star and not being in any Marvel movies.
Right, right.
You know,
Yeah,
people love Ghost Rider, whether it's motorcycle Ghost Rider or lowrider Ghost Rider.
but not Haunted Horse Ghost Rider. Wasn't that like the Nick Cage one? Doesn't he ride a horse at some point in that movie?
This is safe space, right? I've
Hmm.
never seen either of the Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider movies.
I want to say I've seen the first. It would be weird if I've only seen the second one. I believe I've seen the first one, not the second one. And honestly, Safe Space, I didn't hate it. I don't love it. It's not a good
I
movie, but
mean,
I
I
didn't
think
hate
I
it.
think people I think it falls under that umbrella of like kind of like with people in those Venom movies where it's like, you could like it.
Hmm.
You could like it. You could like it as in a way,
But like it was like that was pre MCU, right?
for sure.
So
But sort of like getting close to when the MCU started, but like
yes,
still
for
3 years
sure,
ago.
for sure. But like it was still like we had no expectations. You went to the movies, you had a good time, or
Right.
you didn't, and then you forgot about it and you moved on with your life. You know, maybe it showed up on like the Sci-Fi Network one day or something like that. But like other than that, he just didn't care. It wasn't like the end of the world if it was fine, you know?
Yeah. And that dovetails nicely to our Blade discussion because if but for the Mahershala of it, if we were just comparing it to the quality of the Blade movies, you know, we could be like, yeah, I mean, it's cool.
Hmm.
Just 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 do a movie. Just do a movie in the MCU. It'll be fine. We'll be happy. We'll be happy to see that Blade is in the MCU. I mean, even the fact that we got Wesley's Blade in Deadpool and Wolverine, all spoilers for a movie that made 1.5 billion dollars.
Yeah, right.
That was cute. It was cute. People were just happy to see it. Now, I don't think that they need to make a Blade movie starring Wesley Snipes to continue that joke,
Yeah.
but some people learn the wrong lessons.
I do think that having like that was one where I didn't know that going into the movie.
Oh, neither did I.
And so when it happened, I was like, oh, like I audibly, which is like, oh, and I do kind of wonder if it hurt Marshall Ali's Blade project because I think a lot of people were like, I still love Wesley Snipes as Blade.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, it did in that sense. In that it reminded us why we love Blade, which, and it again comes back around to what we were saying before. It raises the bar for Mahershala, who's sitting there like, oh great, so you love Wesley. Really have to make sure that this movie is not bad.
Yeah, I don't know.
So maybe you're right. Maybe he just says the bar's too high, can't do
Maybe
it.
he's the executive producer on whatever the eventual Blade film is, but like I just get the feeling like this is just not going to happen with him. Like I just feel like it's been years at this point that we've been pushing this back.
Yeah,
Like
it
and
was. I
pushing
think
it
it
back.
was. I think it was 2019 when he was announced.
I mean,
And he's never appeared on screen as Blade. We heard his voice.
I mean, we beat fascism and lost to fascism again since the last time since he was announced as Blade. Like the world got better and worse. We've gone through an entire cycle and he's still not Blade on screen. Like it really is their version of the Flash. It might even at this point be getting near being worse than the alleged Flash film.
I think the Flash was like 10 years.
Was it 10
I think
years
the
with Ezra?
Flash was announced before the show started.
Yeah, but
And then
when
the
was,
show ran its entire run
yes.
before.
But how long was Ezra Miller the Flash before that movie came out? It wasn't 10 years.
No, I think it was maybe a year into. We knew there was a Flash movie, and I think Ezra was cast about a year later.
Okay. So when did the Flash come out? Was that last year, 2023?
Yeah,
So Ezra Miller was cast as the Flash in 2014.
sounds about right.
Jesus. When did the Justice League? God, I don't even. Whatever. Never
Yeah,
mind. Whatever. But okay, so we're
but
not
no, I
close to
mean,
being.
yeah. But again, at this point, and that's why I'm of two minds on it. At this point, we should be focusing all of our efforts after this year, really after Fantastic Four. We should be locked in towards Doomsday, Secret Wars. You know, I know there's going to be Thunderbolts, and that's going to be cool, but maybe there's some kind of post-credit scene that connects even Thunderbolts to the multiverse saga. We're gearing up. We're trying to hit this reboot hard.
Hmm.
We're getting all of our faves back. We're getting Robert Downey Jr. We're getting mutants. We're doing the most, right? And because we're doing the most, like we really can't afford to. Apologies for the technical difficulties. Thanks again to Carlos Freytes for the cool conversation. Thank you, listeners, for giving us your time once again. Join us next week, same racial draft time, same racial draft channel, where we continue to change the complexion of the comic book universe one draft pick at a time through the racial draft. You can find us again at all your favorite podcast sources, including Spotify. You can find us on all your social media platforms as well. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and some others I'm probably forgetting. But till next time, all things are possible.